all of you, and a very warm welcome to each and all of you. My name is Josué Tanarga, and tonight I am, I guess, in a position of visiting professor in practice at the Grantham Research Institute at the London School of Economics, working with Lord Stern on global climate finance. This evening, I have not only the privilege, but the pleasure to be the moderator for this event, as I have worked for each of the countries present at this event, have worked for close to 4 decades in MDBs, including the EBRD, and being in close contact with AIIB in the context of the MDB climate group. And I established very early on a close relationship with the IEA as the EBRD embarked on developing its climate action. I guess it was almost close to 20 years ago by now. So this event will address one of the major challenges ahead for us all, which is how to accelerate the transition to a net zero climate resilient economy. There are many questions that underpin these challenges, so I'll just put a few, because we could be very long on the number of questions to be addressed, but some of them are certainly, what are the goals which countries would pursue to get on the net zero climate resilient trajectory? Another question could be, what are the policies and investments required to get and stay on that trajectory? Another question could be how to mobilize the finance required to implement mitigation and adaptation projects, or how to create the capacity in country to achieve these goals. And to close, perhaps a final question, how to do this in a practical and inclusive manner, taking account of country social development and financial situation. So MDBs are already playing a significant role in addressing these questions, but considering the scale and urgency of current challenges, there are increased expectations on their role in expanding their climate and development action. This is reflected very clearly, for example, in the COP27 Sharm el-Sheikh implementation plan and in the current work on MDB reform covering topics related to the mandate, scale, operating model, and cooperation among MDBs. It is in this context that MDBs have been working on the development and implementation of a renewed country platform approach which addresses, or seeks to address, many of the questions ahead of us. And we're fortunate this evening to have what I would call a super panel to cover this approach from a set of perspectives. We will do so in 3 parts, starting with 2 scene-setting addresses, which will be followed by a high-level panel discussion and by an important country announcement. So, apologies for such a long introduction, and to move effectively into the heart of the matter, may I now invite Dr. Fatih Birol, Executive Director of the International Energy Agency, to make his address, highlighting the investment and actions required on the pathway to net zero. Dr. Birol, the lectern is yours.
So many thanks, Mr. Tanaka, for bringing us here together, and it's a great pleasure to talk about this very topic. And it's a great pleasure to be in this panel and organizing this event with the EBRD and AIIB. And it's, of course, always a great honor to be with the Madam Minister from Egypt. So, dear colleagues, we are, I guess all of us are tired towards the end of the day. Many discussions, many thoughts, exchanges of views, and still we have a lot of days in front of us. Let's think about this. And I am sure many of us are asked the same question that I am often asked here and just coming before here. What are the key expectations or hopes you have from this COP28? So it's a check blanche, an open check, very good question. You can say a lot of things. And I always say that we have 5 things that the IEA discussed. What are those? Renewable efficiency, etc. But if you ask me, and what is the single most important issue in our planet's fight against climate change, for our survival. What is the most important one? And please remember that, or you should, perhaps I should tell you, I am a man who makes his hands dirty with data every single day. What is happening there, what is not happening, what works, what doesn't work, what are the problems. Entire world, developed countries, developing countries, entire energy sector. For me, number one issue is today clean energy financing in developing world. Number one issue. Number two issue is the same. Number three issue is the same. Top three issues for me. This because these are the numbers. Because, dear colleagues, when we think about the climate change or coming emissions to zero, as we hope to see by 2050, and when we look at where the emissions come from and will come from in the next years to come, it will come from emerging world. And rightly so, because they need energy and they will develop. About 2/3 of the concentration of carbon in the atmosphere today is a result of the industrial development of the advanced economies. It is coming to the Western countries and others. So, and developing countries will grow, and when they grow, they need energy. Without energy, economy doesn't grow. You don't have a comfortable or social life, it doesn't work. But which energy source they will use will be depending on whether or not they will have financing. And when we look around the world, we see there is a huge potential for using clean energy in developing countries. But we are not able to use it. I give you one example, which is a very heartbreaking example. Data, I am sorry I talk about data a lot, but this is a very important one. You know, in sub-Saharan Africa, 1 out of 2 persons, they don't have electricity. 1 out of 2. Number one. Number two, sub-Saharan Africa has the highest amount of solar radiation in the world. More than 40% of the solar radiation in the world comes to sub-Saharan Africa. Number three, solar is the cheapest source of electricity generation, and they can grow and bring electricity to everybody if there was some type of financing there. Number four, and it's coming to the heartbreaking part, at least for me, the amount of electricity generated from solar in entire sub-Saharan Africa is half of the electricity from solar generated in Netherlands. Think about Netherlands, think about the world map, the size of sub-Saharan Africa and Netherlands. I don't know if anybody from Netherlands here, I hope not. Well, bonsoir, bonsoir. So it's not against Netherlands, I am just trying to say what a big opportunity we have in sub-Saharan Africa. It is because of lack of finance, because generally in the developing world, building a solar panel in the developing world compared to, for example, advanced economies, the cost of capital is 3 times higher, at least 3.5 times higher because of the risks that the investors see. And we say at the IEA, and when we look at our numbers, clean energy is growing, really very, very strong around the world. Again, 2 examples to you. This year, of all the power plants built in the world, of all of them, in the entire world, we have the data, more than 80% of all power plants built in the world is renewable energy. Less than 20% coal plus gas plus oil, everything put less than 20%. Renewables alone, 80%. This is good news. Second, electric cars. Again, a huge increase. Not many people are aware, but 3 years ago, only 3 years ago, of all the car sales in the world, 1 out of 25 cars sold was an electric car. So 1 out of 25 3 years ago. This year, 1 out of 5 cars sold is electric. And in 2030, with the most conservative expectation, every second car sold an electric car. In many parts of the world, heating at home is made more and more by heat pumps because they are becoming cheaper. Governments are supporting. There are many examples of that. But the most important example for me is the investments. So please, I will give you last time I will give a number. I promise not more number, but this is very important. When we have the Paris climate COP, Paris 2015, the entire investment, energy investment, coal, oil, clean energy, dirty energy, 2015 entire investment in the world was $2 trillion. And out of this $2 trillion investment in the entire world, 1 trillion was for fossil fuels, 1 trillion was for clean energy. So 50-50, 2015. This year, total investment in the world of energy is 1.8 trillion for clean energy and 1 trillion still for fossil fuel. So fossil fuel investments stay the same, but the clean energy increased from 1 trillion to 1.8 trillion, almost double from Paris to today. This is a good news, not as much as we would like to see, but this is definitely good news that the clean energy investments are flowing. But there is a big but here, and this is the topic that I wanted to bring to you. All this investment in clean energy from 1 trillion today to 1 trillion in 2015 and 1.8 trillion today, all this growth came from advanced economies and China. The amount of clean energy investment in the emerging and developing world since 2015 is flat. No increase whatsoever. This is the worrying issue. This is the worrying issue because for everybody, including the advanced economies. Because, dear colleagues, even in, for example, here in Emirates or in Europe, as of tomorrow, emissions would go to zero. Let's say I live in Paris, let's say in France or in Europe, the emissions go to zero. Forget the decline, just zero as of next week. For 30 years, zero. The impact of climate change on Europe and France will be exactly the same if the emerging and developing countries didn't have a clean energy system, because emissions going to atmosphere from Jakarta or from Cairo or from Santiago has the same impact on the European or American or the Japanese climate. Emissions don't have a passport. So the financing, helping to finance clean energy in the emerging world for the advanced economies is not only a moral issue, I believe it's a moral issue, but at the same time, for the self-interest to save their climate, to save their daily lives, to have a daily life, normal life as they had before, it is a must. This is what I am trying to explain the leaders, so that even leave aside the moral and historical responsibility, the advanced economies need to, in my view, support the clean energy financing in the emerging world. And here, what needs to be done is we need to see that especially the financial institutions here, in addition to the advanced economies, the financial institutions in which the advanced economies have a strong weight in their boards, we have to see that they provide some, at least type of concessional funding. And our numbers show that there is a need, if we want to go to 1.5 degrees target, we need to see about 100 billion each year of concessional funding in order to trigger the necessary private financing. We need, for the clean energy, the public money, private money, domestic money, international money, but before that, we need to understand that without addressing the clean energy financing in emerging world, we will never, ever reach our climate goals. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Birol, for this clear, as usual, and very precise presentation of, I guess, where the world is, and for setting, I would say, such clear points and clear challenges that need to be addressed. And I guess particularly the way you highlighted the situation, I would say, in regional terms, I think it makes, the event that we have tonight so particularly relevant. So let us now turn to a country that has been pioneering, I would say, the use of a country platform approach to achieve specific climate and development goals. And so we are very privileged in this context that the Minister of International Cooperation of Egypt, Mrs. Rania Al-Mashat, can be with us this evening, as she has led the development of what is called the full name, the Nexus of Water, Food and Energy Program, and for experts, otherwise known as NWAFI. May I therefore invite you, Minister Al-Mashat, to take the floor and provide us with some, I would say, of the early lessons arising from the implementation of Egypt's NWAFI. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I can't express how happy I am to be here 1 year after COP27. We were in Sharm el-Sheikh, it seems like just a few hours ago, but it's been a very busy year, a year where we were trying to move from the announcement of the country platform to the implementation of the country platform. And country platforms, in terms of concept, started with the G20 Eminent Group several years back. And the idea was private sector needs to come on the table with concessional finance to push development projects forward. The idea was there, but the operationalization was not as easy as everybody initially thought. When Egypt became president of COP27, and as the executive director mentioned, nobody can deny the need for concessional finance, the calls for more supply to move the energy transition in different countries, but there's always supply needs to be met with demand. So that was very, very important. There were two very key presidential initiatives for COP27. One of them was the Sharm el-Sheikh Guidebook for Just Financing. We wanted to exactly express what the executive director was mentioning. What does a just transition mean? What is that definition? What does a just financing mean? And we put together the Sharm el-Sheikh Guidebook for Just Financing, which has an agreement among those who contributed, and many MDBs and private sector were part of this. And it's financing that accounts for historical responsibility for climate change, while ensuring equitable access to quality and quantity of climate finance that supports resilient development pathways, leaving no one behind. So here I want to emphasize, because this is going to push me to the next initiative, which is the country platform, is that it's not just about the quality, the quantity of the money, but it's the quality. And what we mean by the quality is what the platform allows: technical assistance, advisory services, complementarity among the different development partners and partners to be able to push forward what the national objectives are. And this brings me to the next initiative, which is our country platform, the Nexus of Water, Food and Energy. And it's pronounced in Arabic Nawafi, and Nawafi means fulfilling pledges. So it was chosen with care because our COP was a COP of implementation, and we wanted to show how we can move forward in terms of implementing what we call for. Now, this country platform, and I want to thank many partners who are here with us in the room, President Odile, EBRD, President Quinn from AIIB. I see the US administration represented here as well. Secretary Kerry played a very important role with us at the initiation of the platform. IFAD, African Development Bank, the German government. And the idea of the platform was it had to be country-led. And when we say country-led, mitigation is very important, as we just heard, but also adaptation for our countries is important, and generating energy which is able to push water projects, particularly on desalination, and then agriculture projects. This whole nexus becomes very, very important. So the way the platform was designed, it had to be nationally owned. We have a 2050 climate strategy. This strategy has different sectors: mitigation, adaptation. We chose 9 priority projects. The energy project is the biggest when it comes to its financing needs because of the private sector element, which was very, very key. If we take a look at global statistics, we have almost 8% renewable energy generated per year. If we need to go to net zero by 2030, we need 13% annually, and therefore comes the urgency. In the case of Egypt, our energy mix before the platform, our NDC, was 42% renewable by 2035. What we committed to with the platform, with Nawafi, was to bring forward this objective, so the NDC would be 42% by 2030 instead of 2035. And this could be made possible by the availability of concessional finance, be it from our MDBs, but also from several bilaterals. And here let me mention a debt swap that we did with Germany. It's 100 million euros plus concessional finance. So here we were able to have commitment from the government to push and accelerate the NDC, but also this comes with availability not just of concessional, but technical assistance, grant component, and as I mentioned, a window for private sector investments as well. This was launched at ahead of COP27. And then in the spirit of transparency and governance, on November 19th, just 2 weeks ago, or maybe 10 days ago, we had a pre-COP event in Cairo with all our development partners, and we launched and published our first progress report on what has been accomplished item by item and project by project. So this is again to show that country platforms are not just, they have a governance structure, they include the government with its policy and trying to push forward, but they also include the development partners, the private sector that becomes engaged, and also coordination mechanisms between the different, not just MDBs, but the bilaterals. So this is a very important example which is replicable. It is, if you take a look at COP28's framework for finance, this just came out yesterday and it's going to be discussed tomorrow in detail with the stocktake. Country platforms are featured very much, and in their feature they say it has to be country-led, so this is very, very important. National ownership becomes extremely important so that it works. And the second point is the need to create the complementarity between the different partners, and this is also something that country platforms become very important in providing. The other aspect is we go from renewable mix to also green hydrogen to battery storage. So this has also opened opportunities for additional investments which could be open for investment opportunities from the MDBs, but also private sector. Yesterday, with the Prime Minister of Norway, we signed with Scatec a very important project related to batteries and green hydrogen and so forth. So again, pushing a bit further with respect to the projects in the platform. And then the success of the platform, in my view, hinges on 3 C's: commitment of the government, clarity with respect to the projects, and also the credibility that we have with the international community. EBRD is a very important partner with Egypt. We started our renewable journey since Bin Ban, 2014, 2015, along with IFC, along with EIB, along with many other partners. The NWEFI platform has a pillar for energy led by EBRD, a pillar for water led by the African Development Bank, a pillar for food led by IFAD, and then we have NWEFI Plus, and the plus is for sustainable transport, and there we have EIB. But again, all partners are with us. All of this is documented, it's on our website, and we also on November 19th issued a communiqué where the partners are commending or applauding us for the different policies and the NDC update, but also renewing the commitment to see through the projects by 2030 and 2035. These are medium to long-term projects, but they require, again, international cooperation, and they require an understanding among all of us, being the government, the private sector, and those who finance in a way that is clear, coherent, but also able to achieve results. So this is Egypt's story with the country platform. We're very happy that we didn't only launch it, but we were able to also show after 1 year what has been accomplished. Something else we did in this report is that we linked each and every principle in the just financing to the projects. So when we say the principles of just financing include several that come under country ownership, several that come under governance, several that come under development and resilient development pathways, each of these principles, and there are 12, and I encourage everybody to take a look at those as well. It is just a way to say that country platforms operationalize what we all want when we talk about just financing. I will stop here because if I go on, it will be a very long a very long speech. But for all of this to work, government coordination is extremely important, and also coordination among the MDBs and the government becomes very important. I always say that it worked for Egypt because we have a Ministry of International Cooperation that is able to coordinate among the sovereign entities and also among all our development partners. But again, commitment, clarity, and credibility. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister Amlashad, and we are very happy and appreciative that you can stay with us, because even though you could maybe not cover all the aspects that you would have liked to communicate to us, hopefully we will be able to cover a few more insights in the panel discussion. Dr. Birol, I don't know if you need to go, but we understood that you had some time constraint. So, yeah. So
I may say something before I go.
Perfect.
So I just wanted to, I follow the EBRD, what we are doing, Odile. I just wanted to thank you very much what we are doing. So much appreciated, really. We see an important difference in the works of EBRD as an energy organization. I just want to thank you before I go, and thank you to all the panelists and Madam Minister. Thank you very much.
So we now turn to the panel discussion, which will look at transformative country-led approaches to scaling climate action. And so, as I mentioned, we have a super panel, but in order to be able to present everybody, I will start, I guess from your side, it will be the left. So you have on your, I would say, extreme left, Minister Yerlan Nisambayev, who's the Minister of Ecology and Natural Resources of the Republic of Kazakhstan, and he will have, at the end of our event, an important announcement to make. In terms of the panel, you have next to him Minister Kaja Shukova, who is the Minister of Environment and Physical Planning of North Macedonia. Then Ms. Odile Renaud-Bassot, who is, no, sorry, it's my vision here, Mr. Jean Licum, who is the president of the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, otherwise known as AIIB. Next to him, Ms. Odile Renaud-Bassot, who is the president of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, and, well known since you've already been at the lectern, Minister Rania Al-Mashad. So we will cover the country platform approach this evening from two perspectives and in two rounds of questions. We'll start with the MDB perspective to understand how the approach is being developed, and we'll then turn to the country perspective to get further insights on country engagement and implementation. So if I may, starting with the MDB perspective, I think it's relevant to mention that MDBs have already significantly increased their climate activity. So these platforms, in a way, add, to what the MDBs, have already been doing. If you look at the latest data from the joint MDBs climate finance report, it shows that the MDBs together had another record year in 2022, with total climate finance reaching close to $100 billion, of which close to 2/3 have been in emerging markets and developing economies, the point that Dr. Birol made a few minutes ago. In addition to finance, I think it's also very important to mention that MDBs have also been active in terms of supporting their countries of operation, in terms of policy, capacity building, technical assistance, as Minister Al-Mashad mentioned a few minutes ago also. So perhaps, and that's sometimes what happens, if you're very good, then people want you to be even better. So perhaps because of this strong track record and the unique role which the MDBs can play, expectations keep on rising, with the proposed country platform approach being a response to these expectations and the need to accelerate the transition. So in this context, may I first turn to you, Mr. Jean, and ask, what are, in your opinion, the key ingredients to the success of a country platform approach?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me. Yeah. I'm very much impressed with the statement by Minister Rania Al-Mashad. I think Egypt is doing quite a lot of things in this regard. That actually enhances our conviction and confidence. By working with responsible members, countries, we can achieve a lot. Now, let me share with you our bank's thinking and our ideas with regard to country-led platform. All these years, you seem to be hearing narratives from the development banks, multilateral development banks, international community, G20, UN. It looks like climate change is the business of anybody except the government. Now, that kind of misunderstanding. And also when we talk about how important the private sector would be, what is the role of the government? So I think country-led platform reinforces the idea that government has a role to play. I think this is the balanced approach. And also, country-led platform highlights the ownership. We all invest in the sovereign countries, sovereign governments. Without ownership of any government, you cannot do much. You cannot do very well. So I think this is a timely approach, just like Egypt, what Egypt has been doing, and some other countries in this region. So my view is, this highlights ownership. And then what's the role of the government? Government have some do's, have some don'ts. Something you do, something you do not do. So I think this is very much, we all say, the critical role of the government is to what it should, but not going beyond what it should. This is important. Strategy, in my view, is very much important. A capable government must be able to design a very good national strategy based on big data to provide guidance to the private sector investors. You simply cannot put money in anything without knowing what the market is moving forward. How many other kind of projects or similar projects are being done? So my view is the government should, based on its ownership, try to take stock or take review of the policies. What kind of policies must be got rid of? What kind of policies must be updated to be inducive to the financing for climate change mitigation and adaptation? What kind of policies could be updated, improved to attract private investors? This is important. I remember in China, in the run-up to the membership of WTO, China had a review of the policies. They got rid of 3,000 policies and rules which would be obstacle to China's opening up and membership. So this is, I think, very much important. It's the ownership, right? And the whole purpose of taking stock, taking review of the existing policy is to improve your policy and regulatory environment. So you improve the ease of doing business. You make people, if private investors feel comfortable investing in your country. And don't forget, domestic resources are important. Whether the country is rich or poor, you have domestic resources. If the domestic resources are not there, it's because it's a problem with your policy. My view is, given China's experience and experience of many Asian countries, where does the resource come from? Reform. If you have very good reform, domestic resources will be there. Foreign capital would come in. Reform is the most important source of financial resources. So this is, I think, very much important. And what the government should not do. The government should not change its policies in response to short-term issues, thereby leading to big fluctuations in the policy. It's like driving. You know how to drive. You drive like that. Do you think drive like that? Because, you know, and then the car the car can never go ahead. So you tolerate some of the policies, you drive that way. Be a little bit tolerate, and you change your directions, you move ahead. The worst is draw like that. Okay, so I think country-led platform is important. Only under this kind of conditions could it be hopeful that you would attract steady inflow of capital, and they will not simply invest, they can do a good job on a long-term basis. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Randy. So perhaps turning to your experience, Ms. Renaud-Bassot, could I ask you the following, because you've seen a lot, I guess, both within the EBRD and before. And this concept, as Minister Al-Mashhad mentioned, of country platform, you know, it's been around for a while. And I think the question is really to ask you, you know, what are the changes that are being discussed, you know, within, you know, I would say this renewed country, sometimes we've called them thematic, you know, platforms, which could contribute to enhance results and impact.
Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here and with colleagues and partners. And so I will start by saying, because indeed, Rania recalled us that country platform were part of the eminent person group report in the G20 a few years ago. And as far as I can see, I think nothing really happened before now the new focus on country platform, in particular for climate. And why is this coming and why is it so important? Professor Fatih Birol explained us, and recalled us the financing challenges for green transition in emerging and developing countries. So we have a problem of quantity of resources. We have some resources, but they are scarce. Therefore, it's very important to use them as best as we can in a very efficient manner, and also to develop the framework that can attract further, in particular, private sector resources. So that's one element. We have this challenge of financing. We need to be efficient, and we need to find frameworks that can be attractive for private sector investors. The second point is that green transition, and in particular, is a very complex issue. And I don't think it can be sorted with, project by project, each MDB having its project and having its approach on one sector, on one kind of investment. To be credible and to be effective in dealing with the green transition, you need to have a broad strategy to look at all the dimensions and to have a long-term plan. And it cannot be, I think that the traditional approach of development, which was a bit, project by, as I was saying, project by project, and cannot work with this kind of challenges, which is so global, and where, for example, you need at the same time to develop to close down some fossil power plants and to develop renewable. And this needs to be done in a coordinated manner with infrastructure in between to ensure that you can connect your renewable to the grid. So all this is much more complex than, it's one of the most complex issues we need to face, and that's why this country platform is so much needed, in particular in this area of green transition. So then what happened from my perspective as EBRD is you need to have countries that are willing to have, committed to have a plan, willing to get some ambitious objective and to define ambitious objective that can be the basis for the country platform. And in Egypt, I think it started with a bit of economic discussion on what would make sense for the Egyptian economy. They have gas power plants that were not very efficient. They have a huge potential for renewable, for natural circumstances. And therefore, it makes a lot of sense on economic grounds to say, okay, we can, decommissioning this gas power plant and developing in parallel renewable would give Egypt the capacity to export gas, to get foreign exchange revenues, and get cheap energy with renewables. And so that, and Egypt was willing to, in view, preparing the COP and so forth, to have this ambition plan. I'm talking about energy, but it's also true on water and food. And we will discuss another platform, which is North Macedonia, and it's the same ambition of having a very ambitious NDC, the objective to get out of coal by 2030, and the need then to develop massively, quickly renewable. And so that, I think, is a starting point for the platform on which we worked. So it really needs to start from country commitment and ownership, and as Jean was saying, ownership. So based on, and we are trying to develop this approach. So in Egypt, in North Macedonia, we are also looking at a more sectoral country platform on industrial decarbonization with low carbon pathways in some very industrialized countries. That could be a good basis for this kind of approach. What key ingredients? Ownership of the country, but also somebody in the government at high level that is in charge of ensuring that all parties are well aligned. And the existence of MOIC, for example, in Egypt, has been a key asset because, you need to deal with different governments. The different ministries, Ministry of Energy, the network, electricity network company. You need to bring all people around the table. You have hurdles, you have challenges. People do not necessarily agree immediately. They need to be convinced. You have, and this needs somebody in charge, able to bring together the different ministers and to remind that delivery is key, and to, when we are stuck, to be able to make phone calls and call on the Prime Minister or the President to get things done. I think that's the first element. Second element is a sound analysis of the challenges. It's a long-term objective, so you need to have a very strong basis of knowing why you do that, what will be the cost, what will be the opportunities, and this is also the condition for having stakeholders buying, in particular at domestic level. Because you have a lot of force for status quo. When you do this kind of transition, of course you have vested interests and you have status quo, and so you need to be very strong on the reasoning, the underlying analysis, and so forth. The third element is a strategic engagement of the international community. And I think that bringing together, this is one of the major benefits of the platform, is bringing together all the players, MDBs, donors, on the same objective. And then everybody finds its way, but we have the same platform, we are pushing in the same direction, and we are not giving advice in different direction, and EBRD saying that, AIB saying something else, and World Bank another objective. So I think having this common platform, this common message, and this shared objective is very important. Fourth is, of course, because if we are focused on energy and climate, is to have a clear ambition, long-term ambition, that gives the basis for attracting. It's very important to attract soft money, concessional financing. In the case of Egypt, we were able to mobilize with John Kerry and Germany and so forth, 500 million of concessional financing to accompany the transition, help with and I think that's a very important element, because with this level of ambition, donors can be mobilized, and they know what will be the purpose, what will be the outcome, and what will be the value added for their money. And it's also very important for private sector capital, because then you have, as Rania was saying, clarity, commitment, and they know where the country is heading, and this helps to plan investment. And the last point is to have strategic communication, clarity on the communication, building on the local context, and this is important for international partners, for private sector investors, and for the domestic audience. And so I believe that these are the key elements, and that allows to bring together policy, financing, and technical assistance to deliver on this. So now we are still at the early times, but because the objectives are very clear, monitoring the implementation is also very clear, and this creates huge incentive to be sure that we are on track, because we have, committed to many people, and then, monitoring this process, this progress is very important, and I think that will be key at the end in the credibility of this approach.
Thank you very much. This was a very extremely structured and clear presentation. So we've heard from both President Jin and President Renaud Basso the expression, that country is most important. So, key word here is country. So the interest, the engagement, the commitment of countries, I think both of you have mentioned as, the key ingredient, certainly at the start and probably all along. So we're very grateful that Ms. Kaja Shukova can be with us. And what I will do now is maybe I will ask you a question as a minister who is looking at this process at the start, and then have a question also to Minister Al-Mashad in terms, of a country that's already on the path. So I think the question to you, Minister Shukova, would be, to ask perhaps, what are the main objectives your country is pursuing through, this approach, and to a certain extent, what are your key expectations, that this platform approach can bring to you.
Thank you. And my name is Kaya.
Kaya.
Kaya, yes, not Kaja. Okay, so thank you for the invitation to be part of this panel, and thank you, Madam Minister, for sharing Egypt experience, because we are at the very beginning and you already passed 1 year, and we try to remember the 3C. I think this is very relevant and very important. And we are on this panel representing our objectives several minutes after we signed our platform with EBRD. And with this, practically, we are showing our commitment, but also our dedication as a country towards the decarbonization future of the country, but also of the world. So with this, I think that we are sending the message that even the small country as North Macedonia can take their own part in the process. and they can take also their own way. But experience, like the colleague from Egypt already explained to us, is very important, because we can use good experiences and then replicate it also in the countries like our country. So with this, we are showing that we have a vision and that we have ambitions, long, medium term targets, and that they are achievable, but only with joint and partnership action. And in these terms, I would like to say that we have already adopted a long-term strategy on climate action with a long-term vision by 2050. And we are in the way to low carbon economy, following sustainable and climate resilient development pathways, enhancing competitiveness and promoting social cohesion through actions to combat climate change and its impact. But speaking about medium-term targets, then our commitment is in 2030 that 82% net reduction in greenhouse gases emissions compared to 1990 levels. And our ambitions is not stopping here, because we will continue to work on the revision of all and upgrading of all our documents, especially the energy and climate documents. And our energy and climate policies will be aligned and will be consistent. So, as a bonus, we have also, in our policies, we have also calculated economic and environmental aspects of the climate change mitigation policies and measures. And the results shows that 70% of the reductions can be achieved with win-win policies and measures. So, by signing the platform, we are targeting the most significant source of greenhouse gases emissions in the country, on one side, but also we are targeting the sector with the best social impact, since that the maximum number of green jobs in green scenario in 2040, with more than 10,000 green jobs, from which 64% are from the energy efficiency and the remaining are from the renewables. So if we add the health benefits, that the reduction of greenhouse gases emissions and the air pollutants achieved in 2050 with the energy-related carbon mitigation interventions would translate into a reduction of the population exposure to PM 2.5 concentration that will be a little bit lower, and the message is more than clear. So our expectations from the platform are related with the feeling of investment gap needed for the implementation of the mitigation scenario. And we all know that mitigation scenario is so big, I will not go with the figures. And everything at the end, this leads us all to the conclusions once again that only to the partnership between the relevant stakeholders and the signing of our platform show that the governments, that the banks, the private investors, that all of them should be closely together and working closely together on the implementation of the decarbonization agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for mentioning how to pronounce your name, because in my case too, my name is often pronounced in funny ways. So I think with this we can turn perhaps to a second round of questions. But, oh, sorry, I was going to forget the next step, which is to ask to you, Minister Al-Mashad, that I understand that one of the very important elements in the sequence that needs to be developed are the notion of the investment program. In other words, knowing, what are. Could you share with us a bit where that stands at the moment? And also, if I understand, NWAFI has different sectoral components. Is the definition across these components, in your opinion, more or less equal, or is the definition perhaps more advanced in a particular sector versus another?
Let me maybe go to the 2050 country climate strategy, and it echoes what the minister mentioned as well. And it also goes with the fact that we always say, and Egypt wanted also to show the case for COP27, is that climate and development are not necessarily mutually exclusive. And that's why when you go to our climate strategy, you see each objective is linked to the SDGs, the different SDGs. And there you have, within the strategy, different sectors: sustainable transport, renewable energy, green hydrogen, agriculture, et cetera, et cetera. So all of the different projects were mentioned or are laid out, and these are projects between now and 2050. What we have in the platform are priority projects that we felt could be done between now and 2030. They were also projects that are important to us, but also important to our partners. We wanted to show that it's feasible, we are able to push forward. One additional element that has to be kept in mind is patience. We need to be patient with our partners, and our partners need to be patient with us as we are designing the projects. Also, the expertise and the mutual trust between the different entities is important. As I mentioned, Egypt's transition to renewables started in 2014. So it's been close to 10 years where there has been dialogue on policy. So many reforms have happened from the government side to be able to push to where we are today, to be able to update the NDCs. So I totally agree with the president of AIIB that policy and practice come hand in hand. Actually, the annual report this year for the Ministry of International Cooperation has the title Platforms for Policy and Practice, because it's really through the policies that you implement that you are able, to see implementation, drawing in private sector, drawing in different partners to implement. Several years ago also we were the first country in the region to issue a green bond, again on the back of very important programs. So the investability of the projects is a process. You know that these are priority projects. You have to go through the intricate details, as Udil mentioned, decommissioning. To decommission a plant, it's a process, and you need concessional finance, you need willingness, you need reception from those who are going to be displaced. What's the alternative? It's not. We have a project and it's ready. Each and every detail, and at each and every detail, there are a group of partners or one partner that can take the lead. And this is again the mutual benefit of having medium to long-term relationships. When we say financing from MDBs, it's not just a dollar value that is put on the table. It's a process from the beginning till the end, the delivery of the project. And this requires, as I mentioned, commitment from our side, but also the credibility and the trust that we have with everybody.
Thank you very much. Very clear answer for us to work on. So if I could turn now to the second round of questions, perhaps I'll start with the same question to both MDB presidents, which is obviously one of the key elements here on the platform. One is this notion of goals, ambitions, and targets. But I think from the point of view of the country, as Minister Shukova mentioned, it's also a question of the financial resources, that will support, the achievement of those objectives. So the question there would be to both of you on how, Odile, you did mention some elements there, but how do you really see the role of these country platforms in enhancing, resource mobilization? And in a sense, in a broad way, both on the public side, I think everybody mentioned the word concessional, right? But also very important on the private side. So perhaps, Odile.
No, as I said, I think that because the catalytic effect of the platform into mobilize finance is very much related to the fact that you have a clear strategy very much endorsed and supported by the leadership of the country. So it gives, as I was saying, long-term visibility on and consistency of the strategy. The second point is that, so this is a factor of mobilization of concessional financing, because concessional finance, be it bilateral donor fund or green climate fund and so forth, they want, I mean, the more they are able to show that their investment through grants or through concessional financing is triggering something which is large scale, has a systemic impact, the better it is for them. It's much better to, because then they have the full narrative, and their small, I mean, their as big as possible contribution is a key element of it. So, I mean, they benefit from this this leverage in terms of impact. And for the private sector, what it gives, for example, when you look at, I mean, at the two countries, Egypt is announcing a plan of 10 gigawatts of renewables, so private developers, they know that Egypt will develop 10 gigawatts of renewables. So they start, this is creating appetite and visibility. It doesn't solve all the issues. You still have question of cost of funding, who will be the private sector investors. So it doesn't solve everything, but still it has a catalytic effect in terms of visibility, and MDBs, I think, can play a very important role in linking the concessional financing, our financing, and this private sector investment. Mm-hmm. And in the case of North Macedonia, it's the same 1.7 gigawatt of renewable. It's a big plan. It's, you know, it gives, it puts the country on the map of private sector investors looking into investing in this. So it's I think the chemistry between being able to bring some concessional financing that will deal with the most difficult issues, such as the just transition dimension, how to reskill. If you close the coal power plant, what are you going to, how would you reskill people, you retrain people in order to take care of them, the people affected that risk losing their job, but also how you develop the network, the grid. So all the most difficult elements are covered by the concessional financing, and then it unlocks this possibility to bring private sector investors in the renewable part. And MDBs are well placed to do this mobilization. In EBRD, when we look at what we are doing, basically with $1 invested, we mobilize 1.5. It's quite substantial already, and I think this is a very important role in this framework.
Thank you very much. President Jib, would you have some additional comments?
Thank you. Thank you very much. As I believe that creating a very good investment climate for any country is crucial. How could we mobilize resources? And first of all, as I said, if the government would put in place a very good macro and regulatory environment, you could induce domestic and foreign investors to invest in your country for the climate change mitigation adaptation. We understand that in many countries, the government still allocate resources from the public sources, right? And this include the budget support and also public sector OSEs. There are sufficient amount of resources which are at the disposal of the governments. And I also believe if the enabling environment is improved, domestic resources and the foreign capital could come. But there are also some things the government can do, for instance, to improve the tax or have tax reform. Yeah. On the one hand, you have carbon tax. On the other hand, you reduce the taxes, corporate taxes, and particularly to support those industries, renewables, to reduce the taxation burden. So yeah, this is very much important. Now, I also believe we've been talking very much about mobilizing resources. There does not seem to be much attention to the effective allocation of resources. As if you put the money in a project which aims at climate mitigation adaptation, things will be all right. It's not true. sometimes there are lots of problems, the investment would go wrong. So I think we should pay attention to the effective resource allocation, and we should follow, monitor the implementation of those projects. Finally, my view is identify some projects which are very good for adaptation and also the prevention of the natural disasters. You see, if you do something preemptive, you can avert the natural disasters. If the natural disasters happens, the huge losses would be suffered by the country. So if the government would have very good strategy looking at some of the critical areas where they should put the money, and then you can avert some of the natural disasters, which is also very much important. Thank you.
Thank you very much, President. So perhaps turning to you, Minister Shulkova, I think it's been mentioned by all the importance of strong, country engagement and commitment. That may be easy to mention here, in Dubai at COP28, but often, there are quite a number of factors that you have to take into account in terms of, how decisions are made, which are, the different positions, that may exist. So without asking you an indiscreet question, but just to understand, what have been some of the key factors that you've had to take into account in getting to the decision to sign?
Yeah, definitely, there are a few of them. Thank you. I will start with a clear political will. I think that this is very relevant, but also support of the government. And I think that we show political will because we have mainstreamed our energy and climate policies when we have developed our national energy strategy. And we have also introduced decarbonization component into overall energy development. But we have also analyzed mitigation scenarios on greenhouse gases reduction, showing that economic growth in the same time is a green growth. And beside this, stakeholder inclusivity, for example, this is also very relevant because we cannot leave anyone behind. Everyone should be included in the processes. And our approach is to develop policies by applying transparency and inclusivity. And all the stakeholders, that range of stakeholders, they should be the partner, especially the partner on the government, including also other governmental agencies, for example, local communities, business, non-governmental organization. We should also, as a factor, mention also the capacity building, awareness, communication. This is something that we should work a lot. And we are trying now to develop some training programs because we should raise the knowledge of all the partners in the processes and enhance their skills. We can also say that maybe at the end also one of the factors is financial resources and investment, because we have developed the roadmap and implementation plans. We know how much it will cost, and also we know where and from the investment where the investments can be allocated. We identify the potential funding resources and investment opportunities. And once again, at the end, it's very crucial to mention once again that partnerships are very relevant. Now we know everything, we know the factors, and now we are standing in front of the implementation. And this is something that most of the countries in the Western Balkans is facing, and I think it's time to go straight forward. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. And in a way, you make my next step very easy, because to close the panel, I was thinking of turning to you, Minister Al-Nashad, and ask, what advice you would give to Minister Shukova of North Macedonia as, she moves forward and her government moves forward on the implementation of this country platform approach.
I mean, just hearing her here, I feel that already the platform seems to be shaping up in a good way. The commitment is there, the projects. When you were talking about the strategy, I also felt the emphasis on the development part, which was very, very clear. So I just wanted to say that coordination is going to be a continuous process. And sometimes it's an easy word, cooperation and coordination, but many hours of labor go into it, and a lot of also interpersonal management. But the other thing is, to have a national governance structure. So we have a national committee for NWAFI that our ministry leads, so that when I talk to the Minister of Electricity and I reach out to irrigation, agriculture, on adaptation, there's so much that they have to do together. So this also, you need to have a national focal point that is empowered to be able to speak on behalf of the government with the development partners, but also carry the messages from the development partners to the national entity. So I think that is important. And if I can say one thing in terms of communication for NWAFI, the word country platform is repeated in many ways, and this is a good thing. But I just hope when people hear country platforms, they always remember NWAFI.
This is why you're here.
Yeah, exactly. And again, going back to the communique, because it does recognize the sound sector policies, which are a feature of NWAFI, which the President mentioned, and also the acceleration of climate action requires everybody to work together, and this is an example that works, and I hope when we meet next year in Brazil, we hear the case from Moldova in a very detailed way. And then finally, because also Odile had mentioned the idea of transparency with results, and that's why we were very keen for every project to detail what has happened, so that if I go to the OECD principles of global partnership for effective development cooperation, the GPEDC principles, country ownership, inclusive partnerships, results based on action, and then monitoring and transparency. So these are principles of members working together, countries and development partners, and we try to always showcase this in action. So this is also very important, that everybody sees how their work is put together and how they complement one another.
So thank you very much, Minister Al-Mashad, for your insights, and let us hope that reflecting your advice and experience, many countries, including North Macedonia with us, follow the example of your country. Thank you also for our panel for highlighting all these different ways in which country platforms can contribute to answering the questions that were stated, at the start of this event. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Yerlan Nisambayev, who is the Minister of Ecology and Natural Resources of the Republic of Kazakhstan, to make an important announcement to us.
Спасибо. Добрый вечер, уважаемые дамы и господа.
Good day, dear ladies and gentlemen.
Сегодня я хотел поделиться важным решением, принятым нашей страной.
Today I would like to share a very important decision that has been made by my country.
Республика Казахстан присоединяется к глобальному обязательству по снижению выбросов метана.
Republic of Kazakhstan is
Для справки хочу озвучить цифры, они очень важны для нас на таком стартовом моменте. В 2021 году у нас выбросы метана составили более 2 миллиона 400 тысяч тонн.
For your reference, I would like to mention
Это составляет около 18% от всех выбросов парниковых газов.
some figures that we had already. So in the year 2021, the methane emissions in Kazakhstan were of around 2.4 million tons, which is actually about 18% of all the emissions of CO2.
На долю добычи шахтного угля у нас сегодня приходится 50% от всей угольной промышленности. Мы все понимаем, и вы, наверное, что этот путь прошли и развитые страны, что сегодня у нас, значит, особенно энергетика, которая сегодня выбрасывает около 80% всех парниковых газов, подвязаны под ископаемое топливо.
And I would like to mention that if we talk about the coal mine methane, that comprises about 50% of what we do in terms of methane emissions.
И, наверное, следует отметить, что развитые страны тоже прошли какой-то период, когда, в общем-то, год за годом, десятилетие за десятилетием переходили на более экологичные, зеленые технологии в различных отраслях экономики.
And I would like to mention that when we are talking about the development of industry here, that is actually about 80% of all the emissions, they come actually from fossil fuels. And with this, what's really important that the energy sector is responsible for about 50% of methane emissions.
И сегодня мы, развивающие страны, тоже идем уже, наверное, по более протаренной дороге.
And today, we developing countries are kind of following the path that has been already passed by the developed states.
Вам, наверное, было более, скажем, сложнее и труднее.
It might have been much more harder for you to do that.
И сегодня мы имеем возможность трансфера зеленых технологий.
And today we have the opportunity for transfer of new green technologies.
И, конечно, просто технологии зеленые, которые наработаны развитыми странами, они сами по себе ничего не значат и не решат, если, конечно, вот как отметил господин Син Люцин, если не создать в этих странах хороший инвестиционный климат.
And of course, the technologies themselves, they wouldn't matter anything unless you, as mentioned, it was mentioned by Mr. Sin Lutin, if you don't prepare that with a good investment climate.
Вот в эти дни мы все понимали, что есть общее искреннее понимание человечеством, что пришло время менять кардинально всем вместе.
And today we have globally good understanding that, and sincere understanding that whatever we do, we need to change it all together. We need together to do that in a joint partnership.
Мне кажется, всегда можно определить, кто говорит искренне, кто нет. Но вот я первые дни прослушал все выступления глав государств, и я чувствовал, что они говорят это от всей души, искренне.
And what I think is that one can always see who is sincere and who is not. And I had a chance to listen to at least all the heads of states and their announcements, and it looks that all of them have been sincere in what they said.
Но надо понимать, одного стремления мало на сегодняшний день. Сегодня мало, значит, ставить перед собой амбициозные цели, привязки с глобальными задачами. Вот, например, мы сегодня приняли стратегию достижения углеродной, значит, нейтральности до 2060 года. То есть, безусловная цель у нас – это достижение 15% до 30 года. И условная цель, если в случае сегодня международные финансовые организации, развитые страны придут к нам с новыми зелеными технологиями и инвестициями, то тогда, конечно, мы поставили задачу более амбициозную – это достичь 25% снижения выбросов парниковых газов.
And what is really important that ambition is actually not enough. You need really to have clear goals which are in alignment and synergy with global goals. And for Kazakhstan, what we know is that we've now committed to be net zero by 2060, and we have some other goals like 15% reduction of greenhouse gas emissions compared to earlier stages by 2030. And then there's also a conditional goal which also is dependent on the support of financial support for technical transfer. And if that happens, then of course we have much higher ambition of 25% reduction of greenhouse gas emissions.
И вот
by
то, что я
2030.
говорил, 15%, 25%, это в рамках АНОФ.
And that's
Да,
part
вот
of
я,
NDC.
да. И поэтому для нас, мы все понимаем, что сегодня важно значит, перенимание передового опыта, важно тесное общение или, скажем, сотрудничество с международными финансовыми организациями, важно сотрудничество с другими странами. И все это, наверное, не наверное, точно в совокупе даст свои результаты.
And with all this, what's really important is that we need technology transfer, we need to share experience. It's important to be partnering with international financial institutions, with other states. And I'm sure this is the only path forward.
У меня все. Итак, я думаю, аудитория устала. Большое спасибо. Я думаю, что мы только вместе можем достичь успехов. И я думаю, что мы потрудимся вместе еще во благо нашей планеты и нашего будущего поколения. Спасибо вам.
Thank you for this, and I think people are getting a bit tired, and anyways, I'm sure that we still work together, and of course there's a good way forward for all of us to partner for the best of the planet and for the future generations. Thank you very much.
Большое спасибо, Minister Nissanbayev, for your announcement. I think it is important to mention it is a significant announcement. One, because methane, as we know, is really a key priority in the reduction of carbon emissions. And number two, because Kazakhstan is a big country and is a country which plays a key role in there. So I think it's very important to really take this announcement as something extremely significant. So as we get to the end of this event, we've covered a number of important points with regards to the contribution which country platforms can make to address the scale and urgency of climate and development issues confronting us. Now, given that it is almost 8 p.m., I will be very brief in trying to summarize in 3 points. I heard link ambitious goals with required finance. I learned that NWAFI means fulfilling pledge. And I finally also heard drive straight. And maybe that's an advice that applies both, to country platforms, but also perhaps, the way we drive home. So thank you very much for coming, and thank you very much to the panel and for the minister to be here. Thank you, Minister, for allocating all this time to us.
Don't forget what.